Let's bring in Erik Schlitt, managing editor at Pride of Detroit. He is on Twitter at Erik Schlitt. Erik, thanks so much for the time. We appreciate you joining us.
Hi, Erik.
Hey, Maz. Hey, guys. How you doing? It's
doing
good,
nice
man.
to be on. I know we've been trying to. Go ahead, Maz. I know you've been trying to get a hold of me for a while now, but the schedules haven't matched up. So I'm glad we got worked it out today.
Absolutely. Right. Hey, Erik, before I move to the draft, let me just ask you holistically about this football team right now. Everybody's coming into the voluntary workouts saying, oh, yeah, expectations high, we're a family, this, that, and the other. Everything sounds good right now. What about this football team gives people a true sense that this thing not only is heading in the right direction, but we are on the verge here in Detroit of one of those special seasons that we have not seen here in this franchise's history?
Yeah, I think the way the season ended has to leave you with some encouraging thoughts. And when you consider the fact that they accomplished what they were able to in the back half of the year with a lot of young players as their core foundation, that has to really set itself up for them to be successful moving forward, as long as you continue to see that development. Now, in the NFL, things can always change, but there's certainly a lot of positive indications that the Lions can keep the momentum moving forward.
Erik, what's going on? Braylon Edwards here. Hey, check this out. There's so many different mock projections right now as it relates to whether the Lions are going to do at 6, where they're going to do at 18, and then 48 and 55. Question for you is this: moderate in terms of what will be an easy, moderate way to go about 6 and 18 for the Detroit Lions, and then also what would be an aggressive way to go with 6 and 18 for the Detroit Lions?
I think a moderate way is if they just kind of sit there and take the best player available at 6, and then, in my opinion, the value plus long-term need is on the offensive line. And I think they could solidify their offensive line for the next half decade if they were to take an offensive lineman at 18. They could probably do the same thing if they took one at 48 or 55 as well, because if you can get a player that can contribute at like right guard this year, or maybe be a potential long-term solution at right guard, they have the potential to really make the strength of their team really formidable for the next, like I said, 5-6 years. The way that the contracts are spaced out. But so for me, it's just best player, and then I like an offensive lineman at 18. But to be aggressive, I would, you could see them trade up, right? You could. Brad Holmes has a penchant for finding a guy that he likes and then making an aggressive move. Now, if they were to try and trade up to 3 with Arizona, or maybe they stay at 6 and then they try and trade up from 18 to get a guy, I think that's realistic as well. So if you stay at 6 and a player like Jalen Carter maybe falls to you, and you are able to land the best defensive tackle in the class, and then at 18 you're sitting there and and one of the corners that you like happens to slide, and then you trade up to go get that corner, kind of like what they did with Jamison last year. I think that would be an aggressive way to really win, come out of that first day as like a big winner.
Hey, I apologize. I didn't hear anything you said after you said Jalen Carter fell to 6. I got excited. I'm sorry. I didn't hear anything else after that. No, I'm just joking. Go ahead, man.
Erik, how would you rank these guys? Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, in order for the Lions.
I think Will Anderson's the best defensive player in the class, even though I think Jalen Carter represents a bigger immediate need. So I think it's really a coin flip between the two. I could see the Lions favoring Jalen Carter a little bit more. And if the off the field issues weren't there, I think I'd be even more inclined to say Carter number 1. For Wilson, Tyree Wilson is there's a big gap between those two, between Carter and Anderson, and then a big gap, and then Wilson checks in for me.
Why are we hearing so much then on Tyree? Why are we hearing he's vaulting up the board here?
Yeah, Yeah, he's a lot of upside, right? He's going to remind you of Ezekiel Ansah in a lot of ways, where he has a lot of the athletic skills. He has the potential to be a 10 sack a year type player, but he
And
has
sit on the
to,
bench with injuries.
Well, I mean that's possible as well, right? One of the reasons he didn't work out was because he was dealing with a hamstring injury. So I think he has just a unique blend of size and athleticism. And so if you're a team that bets on traits, then Wilson's going to be a guy that is really going to appeal to a lot of teams. And that's really, there's a lot of teams that will bank on traits. But a guy like Will Anderson, who's been productive in the SEC for 3 years, that's a very translatable skill that is almost, there's like a 99% chance that he's going to be a dominant player at the next level. Like there's so many things about his game that easily translate. And so with Wilson, he's a gamble to me, and there's a big gap between those two edge rushers.
I'm glad to hear that.
I definitely agree with you on the gap between Tyree Wilson and Will Anderson Jr. Here's a question for you, though, Eric. Are you at all worried or worried? Would you be worried if you're the Detroit Lions on 2 years ago, 17 sacks, was a lighter individual, was the best player in college football, should have won the Heisman. If he would have came out that year, probably maybe could have been number one. He comes back this year, he's a little bit heavier. He only has 10 sacks, and he got dominated in a couple games, most notably the Tennessee game. So is that something that you're worried about, or you're like, you know what, I know when he gets here, I'm not worried about that?
Yeah, I'm not as worried about it. I think there's a like you said, there's an established history of production there, and so I think he can really what he does translates well. There are still aspects of his game that can be improved. You mentioned the Tennessee game. Darnell Wright is a terrific offensive tackle.
That's why I like an 18.
Number one. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Darnell Wright is the best offensive tackle in this draft class, in my opinion. And what he did was he understood that Anderson likes to go speed to power, and he leans on his power, and that usually dominates offensive tackles. And he wasn't able to do that with Wright because Wright has the skills to anchor, the wide base, the good hips, right? And so Wright was able to get Anderson into a spot where Anderson was late to go to his secondary moves, and that became a little bit problematic. So that's something that Anderson's going to have to be aware of at the next level. Is he's going to have to increase his range of skills. He's not a perfect prospect, but you can see that the developmental range is there with Anderson. And it's not a big leap to think that he can get there. Whereas, like with Wilson earlier, I think you're doing a lot of projection with him.
Talking to Erik Schlitt, he is the managing editor at Pride of Detroit. Erik, I wanted to ask you about one of the things you said was take the best player available, and I totally agree with that. By the way, let me ask it this way: is there a position that you would not want to draft at number 6? Did we just lose him? We just lost him. Okay.
Oh, he's back.
There he is. There he is. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I had to hit decline.
You're fine.
It's
You're
all
fine.
good.
Is there a position at 6 people would not be happy with? Not a player, a position people would not be happy with here in Detroit?
Yeah, to be honest, there's probably a lot of positions. The reason I ask Erik is because if the Lions took a corner at 6, I think I would just throw my hands up.
Yeah, I would be
corner.
Bad too.
You know what I mean? I think there are better players at 6 than a corner, especially like Sauce Gardner is not in this draft.
No, okay, but for example, I would take Devin Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez over Tyree Wilson on my board.
Yeah.
I like both of those players better than I do Wilson. And so if your Anderson Carter combo at the top, and then I think after that there's this big gap, and then it just becomes, if you like defense, where's the best value? And is it I don't think it's a defensive tackle anymore after Carter, and you can argue the edge it's a good practice to take talented edge rushers at the top, But at the same time, I do think that the two corners are pretty talented players. I wouldn't be upset with it at all. I'm a big Witherspoon fan, but I mean, I would understand the trepidation that fans have because you're just coming off a Jeff Okudah project that unfortunately didn't work out, and I hear, look, if there's not a sauce, then in this class, if you don't think there's a sauce in this class, then yeah, I totally get that. So for me, I'm not as worried about it. I like the corners, and if they deem that one of the corners is the best guy there, then I'd be comfortable with that. I'm more comfortable with them than I would be with Wilson.
All right, and let me take the corner part there and put the quarter quarter in there. Adam Schefter we saw says, look, quarterbacks are not going 1, 2, 3, 4. Like I say, he does not believe quarterbacks are going 1, 2, 3, 4. If Anthony Richardson, if CJ Stroud is staring the Lions in the face at 6, would they take him? Should they take him? That might be two different questions.
I think with Stroud, he's more of a sure thing at the quarterback position than like a Richardson is. So if Stroud fell to 6, the first thing I would do is I would be on the phone call with other GMs trying to find the best trade partner I could. But I could understand the value of taking Stroud. With Richardson, it's a much bigger gamble, but again, you're gambling on talent and upside and hoping that you can turn him into the next Josh Allen. So again, I could understand it. It's not necessarily the direction I would go. I think Stroud would be a lot easier to palate than Richardson, and I think that they would jump at that. But I think in both scenarios, they'd be entertaining phone calls for certain.
Erik, stay with quarterback for a minute. Pick 18. Any chance of them reaching to get Hendon Hooker?
I don't see it at 18. There's too many flaws that he has to overcome. He's dealing with an ACL injury, which means that he might not be ready to take the field in training camp. He's going to have a longer learning curve because he's coming from Tennessee's system, which is very, very quarterback friendly. So he's going to have to. There's going to be a curve to his learning ability where he's going to have to move away from that quarterback friendly college scheme to more of a pro style scheme. So he's going to have to learn a little bit more on the fly. You have to factor in his age as well because he's older than Love is over in Green Bay, right? So there's all these different factors that go into play with Hooker that makes me not value him as a first round pick, and I think that for me that hype's a little bit too high on him.
I want to ask you a non-draft question, Erik.
Come on, man.
What?
No, I'm joking.
If you look at the NFC as a conference,
yeah,
who's the top dog? Who's the second top dog? And who's the third top dog? 1, 2, 3.
Well, I think the Eagles obviously have to be in play for in that conversation, right? Because they're coming off the Super Bowl. And they've, established themselves as a pretty good foundation. So I think the Eagles are going to be right there at the top. After the Eagles, it's the 49ers are right there. So I think the 49ers are probably going to be in that conversation as well. And then Dallas. I think you could probably say Dallas is probably that third team. And I know I'm picking 3 playoff teams, but
no,
I think 3 of those teams are probably set up.
Those are the 3 I gave you yesterday.
I know and I think the reason I say that is because it's not like you could take 9 teams in the AFC. I can name you 9 teams in the AFC, and all 9 of those teams would be the number 1 team in the NFC. I think, and Philadelphia got worse. I think. Philadelphia got worse. They paid Jalen Hurts, and but they lost 4 or 5 starters off their team. Not saying they can't replace them, but They got they're a worse team today than they were last year at the Super Bowl.
And you don't like Sam Darnold as the quarterback.
And I do not like Sam Darnold at quarterback for San Francisco.
I think we assume that the Eagles are going to be worse than they were last year because of the names that they lost. But with that being said, yeah, they lost. It doesn't matter. They lost Hargrave, but they got Jordan Davis on the bench. They lost Edwards, but they got Nakobe Dean filling in for them this year. They bought back both cornerbacks this year, and then they paid Jalen Hurts, and then they also have what you're forgetting.
They lost CJ too.
True, they got 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, they do. Look, the season's not. It's a long way to get around to. Man, the Lions got a shot. This is their window. They're
probably 4th,
right? I mean,
or 5th behind Minnesota.
Aren't the Lions in their window, Eric? This is their window right now.
Yeah, I do think their window opened up a little sooner than maybe they thought it would. I believe that when they were building this team, they were looking more at 2024 being the year that they really are in competition for a division and whatnot. And I think the fact that it's here in 2023 has maybe why they were a little bit more aggressive in free agency than we expected them to be. And I don't think it will change their draft approach, but I do think the free agency might have been altered a bit by the fact that there's an opportunity, because I think Minnesota got worse. I think Green Bay is still talented, but without Aaron Rodgers is going to be a question mark.
There's
and
a
the
team
Bears
you guys are forgetting, though.
What they are. So
You're going to bring up the Rams?
There's a team you guys are forgetting about, and I'm not bringing up the Rams because Les Snead, and he might have blew his wide. It is what it is. They won the Super Bowl. I'm not going to bring them up. There's a team that beat the Lions last year early on in the season, and it's a team that also got to the playoffs in spite. Seattle's another team in the NFC.
Seattle's a good team.
They made the playoffs. They'll be stronger this year. They had a good draft last year. A lot of young guys, and they got.
That's a good team.
Hey, said don't count them out.
Hey, Eric, give me a pick. When the Lions are on the clock at 6, they'll select.
Jalen Carter.
Jalen
All
Carter.
right.
Your lips to God's ears.
Please,
right?
Lord have mercy.
If he's on the clock, you run to that podium. Eric, great stuff, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for bearing with us and the technical stuff. We really appreciate it. Great work at Pride of Detroit, and hope to talk to you again soon.
See you, Eric.
All right, see you guys.
You got it. Erik Schlitt. Follow him on Twitter at Erik Schlitt, managing editor at Pride of Detroit.